The average American eats 270 pounds of meat per year. That's over 25 million tons of meat. To meet this demand, farmers have had to drastically increase the scale of livestock production. This has led to animals being raised in CAFOs, or concentrated animal feeding operations. Animals are packed into a building and pumped full of cheap grain until they are ready for slaughter. Antibiotics are a cornerstone of this style of farming. They are used to prevent and treat the infection caused by the terrible conditions in CAFOs. Until recently, animals were even fed antibiotics just to make them grow faster. 70% of antibiotics in the United States are given to livestock. These are often the same antibiotics that are given to sick people in hospitals.
There's increasing scientific evidence that the overuse of antibiotics in animal agriculture is contributing to the rise in antibiotic resistance.
Studies have shown that up to 40% of antibiotic dose is excreted by animals. Livestock effluents have large amounts of pollutants, many being organic compounds that persist for a long time. Wastewater treatment plants cannot remove all the antibiotics and resistant bacteria from the water. The bacteria and antibiotics that are not removed or killed can contaminate ground and surface water through irrigation and runoff.
The general community can also be greatly affected by the antibiotics given to livestock. After packaging and distribution, humans carry the risk of consuming meat with antibiotics inserted into these animals. This eventually causes the spread of antibiotic resistance. Since this increases the risk of resistant bacterial infections, it can easily pass from person to person. This is an example of direct infection with resistant bacteria from an animal source. There are also other ways of getting antibiotic resistance. For example, indirectly via the food chain, water, air, unsanitary measures, and manured and sludge fertilized soils. Infections and illnesses would be more common between individuals and would make it more difficult to treat since effective actions would be harder to find.
Due to unregulated use of antibiotics in livestock feed and water, we can't accurately address the issue at hand and truly describe how bad the situation is. We need one governmental agency to take full autonomy of regulations so they can implement a system to track the amount of antibiotics used in livestock. Once we have assessed the issue at hand, we need to take action and stop the problem from getting any worse. One way we can do this is by establishing a strict enforceable limit on the amount of antibiotics that are allowed in livestock feed. This is not a solution, but it will prevent the problem from getting worse. Next, we must encourage pharmaceutical companies to create new antibiotics that have not been compromised and are still effective against multi-drug resistant bacteria.
When it comes to solutions, sulfa drugs, prebiotic and probiotic, and a limit can solve the issue of overuse of antibiotics. Sulfa drugs and prebiotic and probiotics are beneficial alternatives to penicillin and tetracycline as they deal with harmful bacteria and do not promote antibiotic resistance. A limit on the amount of antibiotics used and incentives for doing so, such as subsidies, can solve the problem too. These solutions can solve the overuse of antibiotics in livestock.